My name is Terrence Boylan. I am the wolf leader for Pack 1 in Barrington, Rhode Island, and we just got back from a fantastic outing at Yagoo Scout Reservation, and I thought now would be a great time to go over a pack list for some of the upcoming outings that we have during the year. So I'm going to post that pack list down below, so you don't have to watch the whole video if you don't want. You can just go grab the text below. A couple things. One, you don't need to go out and buy anything. So all of the things that I'm going to mention, you can go out and buy really high-end equipment. That's not necessary, and I would probably encourage you not to do that, is to use the materials that you have around your house for a few reasons. One, it's more cost-effective. Two, you want to make sure your son is still into scouting in a few years from now, and we hate to have you spend all this money on gear without knowing he's really made a commitment to the program. So let's dig in. I'm going to assume that your son is dressed appropriately for the temperature. So if it's the summer, you want to make sure they have shorts, t-shirt, maybe a sweatshirt, and a baseball hat, some sunscreen. If it's the winter, hat, gloves, mittens, warm jacket, long pants, all that kind of stuff. That being said, you want to make sure that they have a rain jacket, even if the weather calls for no rain. As you know, weathermen are very often incorrect, and you want to make sure they have a rain jacket. In addition, if it tends to get breezy or windy, putting that rain jacket on will act as a wind shirt and kind of keep them a little warmer anyway, even though it's not really an insulating layer as such. Sleeping socks. You want to make sure that your son brings an extra pair of socks. A lot of kids run around in wet grass in the morning, they run around in puddles, they jump in puddles, they run around in creeks and ponds and what have you, and their feet get wet. Wet feet lead to a very cold boy at night. So if you take those socks off, let his feet air out a little, and then put the warm socks on, he'll be much more comfortable and get a better night's sleep at night. You do want to make sure that they have appropriate footwear, so sneakers are perfectly adequate. We're never going on any long hikes. If they've got hiking boots, great, wear them. If they don't go out and buy them. Your son will outgrow any of the footwear you get anyway, so probably you want to stick to sneakers. They're not carrying a very heavy pack, so sneakers are perfectly adequate for that. You do want to make sure that they have a headlamp. Flashlights you have to hold on to. They tend to get lost, they tend to get put down, they tend to get forgotten. Someone else takes their flashlight. A headlamp goes right on their head and lets them play at night safely, which is pretty important. You do want to make sure that the batteries you have new batteries in there so they're fully charged. A lot of kids will fall asleep with their headlamp on and they'll have a dead headlamp in the morning. We try and encourage self-sufficiency in Cub Scouts, and so one of those things to that effect is a first aid kit. You don't need to even go out and buy a first aid kit. Get a Ziploc bag from home, throw in a couple of band-aids, throw in maybe some Tylenol if you feel comfortable with that, throw in a couple of gauze pads and maybe some ointment if you so choose. But a modest kit is better than a big kit in my experience. A modest kit kids will use. A big kit they tend to get intimidated by and they won't open it up. If your son has any medications, you want to make sure that goes in your first aid kit as well. If they've got asthma, please make sure that all the leaders know that. If they've got some other medications, please make sure the leaders know that. Chances are you'll be with them on their camp out, so you'll be able to administer those meds as well. We want to avoid a situation where scouts are administering themselves medication. That's probably not a good place for us to be. So always make sure the adult leaders know, or you're there to administer the meds as well. Pocket knife. If your son is a bear, a Weeblo 1 or a Weeblo 2, they have gone through, or shortly will be going through, the Whittling Chip Award. That's an award where we go through and train them a knife, the different components of a knife, and how to safely use and not use a knife. If your son has a whittling chip, he can have a pocket knife and use it safely in accordance with the rules of the Boy Scouts. If he doesn't have a whittling chip, or you don't know what I mean when I say a whittling chip, he can't use a knife. I know your son's very responsible. I know he's different than the other kids, but the fact is he can't use a knife. So let him get the whittling chip, let him have something to look forward to down the road, and once he earns that, then he has the ability to get a knife and use it. And once he has that whittling chip, get him a knife. A good knife, an entry-level knife that doesn't break the bank, is a Swiss Army knife, and it does all the things he would possibly want in Boy Scouts. It's kind of compact to carry, and it's pretty cost-effective. Whistle. You want your son to have a whistle with him in case they create a game that requires whistling, which happens every once in a while. Also, if he gets lost or he gets hurt or something like that, a couple of taps of that whistle is significantly more effective than anyone yelling in the woods. So just for safety, we want to make sure that he has a whistle on him. Daypack. You can go out and spend hundreds of dollars on expensive backpacks. There's no need for that. It does two things. One, it creates an investment that you have in gear that you probably don't need. You're not sure your scout's going to do it, stay in the program for that long. Two is a big pack tends to get filled with a lot of stuff that they don't need. So in my experience, having done this for over 10 years, the best pack is the day pack he brings to school every day. Dump it out, dump all the papers and the books and whatever else he's got in there, and then fill it with some of the things that we're talking about now. That's a perfect pack. You've already got one at home. Mess kit. You can go out and buy a titanium mess kit if you want, or you can do what I would do, which is go in your drawer and get a Tupperware. Make sure you write their name, their last name on the Tupperware. You want to make sure that you do get that back and that your son's cookware is clean when he goes to use it. But Tupperware or whatever the plasticware you have is perfectly adequate. To that effect, if you've got a knife or a spoon, a fork or a spoon, that's perfectly adequate to use as a utensil. You don't need to go out again and buy a stainless steel or a titanium spork. What you've got around your house is perfectly adequate. You might want to use one that you don't really care if it gets lost, because that may happen as well. A watch. If your son can read time, have him get a watch. If your son can't read time, have him get a watch. This is a great time for him to learn how to read a watch. We also try to organize things by time, so if they have a watch, that'll kind of give them a little sense of unity with the other scouts around them. Snacks. You want to make sure that your son has a balance of snacks that he really likes, even if you might not like him having them. If he loves Twizzlers, get him a pack of Twizzlers. Make sure he has an apple with them. If he loves nuts, get him some nuts. Make sure he has a banana with him as well. You want to make sure you have a balance of things that he will eat in reality and yet things that are nutritious for him as well. You don't have to have a full meal for him, just some light snacks throughout the day. Water bottle. You can buy a stainless steel water bottle. You can go out and buy a really fancy plastic hiking bottle, or you can do what I do, which is just go to the convenience store and buy a 20-ounce bottle of water. And then when that's done, refill it. Actually, any of the long distance hikers, that's what they wind up doing anyway, is using those disposable water bottles. They're very light, they're very cheap. If you lose it, who cares? You can get another one. Make sure to write your name on it if at all possible. Hiking staff. Some kids like to have hiking staffs. Usually they will find them in the woods when we go, and you'll probably get a collection of those at home at some point. Sleeping pad, a sleeping bag, and a tent. Unless you're really set on sleeping outside, you don't need a tent. If you have one, bring it, set it up, but you don't need to go out and buy one. Sleeping bag. Chances are you probably already have a sleeping bag that's adequate for your son's needs. If not, don't go out and buy a down one. He won't have the skill set to keep it dry. Down bags are useless wet. Make sure you just get him a regular sleeping bag at Walmart, at Dick's. If you want to get a higher end one, go to REI. But just a regular sleeping bag is perfectly adequate. I don't think there's a need to spend more than $50 on that if you don't have one already. Sleeping pad. Your son can sleep on one of those thin sleeping pads. It does two things for him. It's going to keep him insulated off the ground, which is really important, and it'll give him a little degree of comfort. If you plan on going on these campouts with him, which I highly encourage you to do, you might want to get an inflatable pad. That's where you would go to REI, or that's when you would go to Dick's. Spend a little extra money, get an inflatable pad. It's just going to make you more comfortable. I slept on the cheap foam pads. They work fine. They keep you insulated. They keep you kind of comfortable. But if you really want a good night's sleep, you might want to invest in an inflatable pad. Just a suggestion. Earplugs. Earplugs do a couple different things. They tend to insulate the adult's ears, rather, from other people snoring around you and give you a better night's sleep, which you will value tremendously. Toilet paper. Even though all the bathrooms that we have will have toilet paper in them, sometimes they run out of toilet paper, and we don't want to have a situation where you or your son go to the bathroom, there's no toilet paper there, and it creates a problem. So I always just throw a few rolls around, throw it in a Ziploc bag, throw it in the bottom of your pack. It takes up no weight, no size, and you've got it if you need it. Toothbrush and toothpaste. There's a lot of sweets that are generally consumed at scout outings, like s'mores. And you want to make sure that your son keeps up his oral hygiene, particularly at night. So toothbrush and toothpaste, throw that in the bag as well. I usually just throw them in a little Ziploc bag, and that way he just carries the bag, goes to the bathroom at night, washes it, brushes his teeth, and he's good to go. And the last thing is medications, like we talked about before. If your son has any medications that are specific just to him, please put them in a Ziploc bag. Please label that bag with his first and last name and let another adult leader know. It's really important that your son is safe at any of our outings, and having medications that he needs are a big part of that. So again, I'm going to put this down in the link below, and if you've got any questions, you can just log on to scoutlander.com, search for Pack 1 in Barrington, and then you can contact me through there. Thanks a lot.